You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Saturday, March 1st. We've got some breaking news that just came out right now. Deebo Samuel has been traded to the Washington Commanders in exchange for a fifth-round pick in this year's draft. Now, as mentioned by Adam Schefter here, this deal cannot be processed until March 12th, so there's still some time for this to fall apart. We've seen crazier things happen in the NFL, but all signs point, of course, till it becomes official March 12th, that Deebo Samuel will be traded to the Washington Commanders. And obviously, I think for the 49ers, this is huge news. I think, obviously, for Deebo, who requested the trade in the first place, this is huge news. But I think with the fact that the 49ers have to trim some money down. And I think this is one way to do that. I understand, we know there's going to be some dead cap hits associated with this. Of course, the two options with Deebo was whether or not they traded him or they could release him. It all had to be done before March 22nd, before Deebo Samuel option bonus became official or was triggered. Ultimately, the 49ers decide on the trade, and I'm not mad at this at all. The one pro to having the release was that the 49ers could have the dead cap hit spread out through 2 years, right? That was the one pro to doing the release versus the trade. But I'm not mad at getting a fifth-round pick for Deebo Samuel. I mean, I think that's pretty good value. If I'm not mistaken, the 49ers did not have a fifth-round pick in this draft. In this 2025 draft, they didn't have a fifth-round pick. They had 10, 11 picks, but none in the fifth round. You guys know, it's the 49ers money round, so I think it makes plenty of sense that the 49ers would be happy to have a fifth round because they have a history of hitting those picks. But in any case, again, I think this is a great trade. Obviously, with the familiarity that Adam Peters has with Deebo Samuel has with Adam Peters, I think it makes a lot of sense. I was talking to a Washington Commanders content creator earlier today. I've been on his show, Carmi, great guy, and he was asking me what I thought about the trade because we'll talk about Brandon Ayuk here in a bit because him and trade have also been in the same sentence quite a bit in the last week. But he was just asking me who I thought would get traded between Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, who is the most likely, and did I feel like Deebo Samuel still has some juice left? I was honest. I was like, I do think Deebo is probably the most likely to be traded of the two. And I think he could have some juice left, but it needs to be in all the perfect conditions. Like Deebo Samuel has to stay healthy, which he has had trouble doing the last couple of years. And then also he needs to be in an offense that, excels in what Deebo excels in, right? Or they operate within the conditions that Deebo excels in. So a team that sees a lot of zone, right? A team that, maybe has a lot of short yardage, middle of the field kind of offense. I mean, that's what the 49ers offense used to be. That's the offense that Deebo helped build, if we're being quite honest, with Kyle Shanahan, right? So ultimately, I think we 49er fans know, I think the 49ers know, I think, Deebo Samuel knows that those days are over, right? I think this offense with Brock Purdy has evolved where you're not so much, having to use this short yardage game exclusively as a crutch for your quarterback. I mean, Brock Purdy does offer you a little more possibilities. And it's a little more, or it's become a little more drop back, at least especially in 2024, it was that. And that's when we saw Deebo Samuel kind of disappear from the offense, even with Brandon Ayuk being out, even with Christian McCaffrey being out. So I do think the pneumonia had a lot to do with Deebo Samuel's step back or regression this year. So I'm not ready to call it completely on Deebo. I think he's going to be motivated, of course. Would not shock me if we get the best shape in his life reports in some months, late summer. But ultimately, it's not going to be the 49ers problem going forward. And so with this, obviously, this brings into question what the 49er plans are going to be going forward with the wide receiver position. As I said, Brandon Ayuk is also being in talks of trade talks, right? The reports have been that teams are interested in Brandon Ayuk. Well, that's not really surprising. Teams interested in a good player. Okay. But the latest report from Diana Rossini just earlier today, Saturday, March 1st, was that the 49ers are open to trading Brandon Ayuk. Now, is that just some... They do this every single year, a month before the draft or so. We always hear of a player, a star player the 49ers are, kind of dangling for a trade. They may or may not trade this player. Just to see, I think, if they get any bites that are worthwhile. But also, there's a lot of reports with the Brandon Ayuk thing around the spending of this team. And I think the spending of from the front office, all these deals that the bills basically that the front office have to foot, right? I think that's what's coming. It's come to a head, and I think the front office has put their foot down on some of these deals. There were reports and rumors, of course, that some months ago that the front office was not happy with the Brandon Ayuk deal, and they haven't always been happy with these big mega deals because they play this game of chicken. They end up folding anyway and paying out what the player wanted in the first place, right? So I get it. I wouldn't be too happy either if I was a front office, I think. But all that to say that I think there's probably some internal discussion or internal feelings that Brandon Ayuk deal probably shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have gone that high, right? So there might be some buyer's remorse there regarding Brandon Ayuk, although on Wednesday, John Lynch, when he spoke with the media at the Combine, he did say they weren't serious about trading Brandon Ayuk. So, make of that what you will. Again, I think they're listening to offers just like they've told us before that they listen with everyone. So I would expect that to be where we're at with Brandon Ayuk. I still would not expect Brandon Ayuk to get traded. We have this trade with Deebo Samuel. The 49ers, like I said, have a 5th round pick. And, we got questions of why wasn't it a bit higher pick. I don't think teams would be willing to give up a higher pick. Really, I think it was down to 2 teams that are probably most interested in Deebo, right? Like we kept hearing about Commanders, Steelers. I think at times we've heard the Texans even. Why is that, right? Well, for the Commanders and the Texans, they have that connection with Kyle Shanahan, with John Lynch already, right? Adam Peters, DeMeco Ryans, they know what Deebo is. And so it seems like a good fit. But for other teams, and the Steelers are just desperate. Like they're very desperate. So that's their answer. But as far as all the other teams, I don't think there's a lot of teams in the NFL that would give up more than a 5th round pick. I'm actually almost surprised that it was a 5th round pick. And I honestly think if it was maybe any lower than that the 49ers would have probably just elected to, release him. But Ultimately, they get it done, 5th-round pick. And again, I think the 49ers are happy with the 5th-round pick because they want one. They're good at that pick or that round for some reason. It's like their magic pick. But yeah, so I think they're pretty happy with that. Again, okay, so I just saw one tweet from Jeremy Fowler. Let me just get this up here really quick. Something about Jonathan Allen. So Jonathan Allen of the Commanders, defensive lineman, he was apparently in talks of these trade discussions as well. Ultimately was not included. Here is let me get this up on the screen here. All right, so Jeremy Fowler says defensive tackle Jonathan Allen was part of the trade discussion between the Commanders and 49ers this week as they executed the Deebo Samuel deal per source. Ultimately, he was not included. Allen is due $16.4 million this year, a possible hurdle. Yeah, I would think so. And I think from the 49ers standpoint, it's worth them just kind of waiting to see if Jonathan Allen ends up being released, which I think is probably the likely scenario. He's a cap casualty, which is why they're looking to trade Jonathan Allen in the first place. But obviously the 49ers have a need at defensive tackle. I think bringing in someone like Jonathan Allen and him being involved in these trade discussions makes a ton of sense. So keep an eye on this one because this could be relevant in soon, I guess, when they decide to release him. So keep tabs on that. As far as some other wide receiver trades that have happened in the last 12 months, going back to like the value, right? This is kind of on par with what other receivers have gone for, right? I mean, Mike Williams went for a 5th. DeAndre Hopkins, who's a little bit older now, went for a 5th. Jerry Jeudy went for a 5th and a 6th. Jonathan Mingo went for a 7th and a 4th. Or, yeah, 7 and 4th? I don't know what that means. Third. Devontae Adams went for a 3rd. He obviously still had some juice left. One of the best receivers, at his peak. Amari Cooper went for a 6th, 3rd, and 7th. I don't know. Why does he have plus minuses in this tweet? It confuses me. But anyway, yeah, I think this is fine value for Deebo Samuel, to be quite honest with you. And so, yeah, again, I think it makes some sense from the 49ers standpoint. I'm not mad at this at all. But I'll continue to look at some tweets here because there's other. So here's Carmi talking about this deal. So Carmi was the one that was asking me about Deebo earlier. Now kind of, Carmi, you don't have a choice. Like he's a Commander now. You better deal with it. But I did tell him this because his concern was that Deebo is not a true wide receiver 2 enough. Like they're a wide receiver needy team. They want someone who they can pair with Terry McLaurin, right? And another type of receiver who's going to be a focal point of that offense. I'm not sure if that's what Deebo is anymore. I don't think that I don't think trading for Deebo will keep the Commanders from bringing in another wide receiver, whether it be in free agency or even the draft. Because I think you kind of have to. Deebo Samuel, like I said, he has a very specific role in whatever offense he's going to be in, right? And again, I think the Commanders' offense, the way it operates, it is kind of short yardage stuff, middle of the field. And Jaden Daniels is a hell of a quarterback, so he's going to have success. Deebo Samuel is, I think, in Washington, but he's not going to be like your number one. And yeah, at this point in his career, I'm not sure you can depend on him to really even be your number 2. So yeah, I think the Commanders probably end up getting another wide receiver at some point this offseason. But what Carmi's mentioning here, and this is from another report, I'm not sure, from one of the media members who posted this in an article. San Francisco will absorb a $31.5 million dead money hit on this year's salary cap. Samuel, who has 1 year remaining on his contract, will count $17.5 million on Washington's salary cap. It's possible the Commanders extend his deal. I think that makes sense for the Commanders to extend him. They can kind of do the same thing and that the 49ers usually do and just have the lower cap hits now and then have some outs later. But anyway, yes, 49ers will absorb the $31.5 million dead cap hit for 2025. And yeah, I mean, I think they accepted that that's what it was going to take to get this to happen. But yeah, this is exciting, and obviously this is a breaking news episode to just kind of talk about the initial reaction. I'm gonna have my show with Weston on Monday, and I would really like to just appreciate Deebo for what he has done for the 49ers. I know a lot of 49er fans have soured on Deebo and maybe at times have not been a fan of the way that he's gone about things. I myself have not always been a fan of the way he's gone about things, but it's all water under the bridge now. I think, like I said, both sides get what they want out of this. It's a win-win. And now we can go back to appreciating the good that Deebo Samuel did for this team. If you guys don't remember the good that he did for this team, like I would invite you to watch some highlights from the 2021 season. I know that was a long time ago. Okay, watch the Netflix Receiver show, the season he was in. I believe that highlighted the 2023 season. And yeah, it was just a good reminder, I think, of how important Deebo was to this offense, just the energy that he brought and whatnot. So yeah, I'm definitely very appreciative of Deebo's time here in San Francisco. And I have a Deebo jersey. I'm probably going to be rocking it on my show on Monday, just a final send off. Kind of sucks that I need to stop buying current players' jerseys because at this rate, like, they're just all going to end up traded. Although my George Kittle one is looking pretty good right now. It's looking pretty good. I think that one, he might be a lifer for the 49ers. So I got that one right at least. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a good move for both sides. Like I said, a win-win. And yeah, this is... let's talk about the draft really quickly because, of course, this week is the Combine. That's part of the reason why I think things progressed and moved so quickly because you have all these front office members, scouts, agents, GMs from across the league who congregate in Indianapolis, and things happen. It moves the needle. So, yeah, I definitely think that that's what got the ball rolling on this. And in addition to that, of course, the Combine is to watch the prospects from this year's class, right? There's like 300 plus players who get invited to the Combine. The 49ers, of course, have a chance to meet with players at the Combine. You guys know I keep track of this stuff, right? So I'll just very quickly, talk about the implications of this trade in regards to in regards to like what the 49ers plan may be at wide receiver going forward. I want to give a shout out to Rohan, who just absolutely crushed it at the Combine. Like, I think 90% I think of this week's sources or like these tweets that we got of who the 49ers are meeting with came from Rohan. So shout out to him. Chase Sr. as well was out there and provided a few of these too. So definitely shout out to them. But as far as wide receivers go, and again, I want to reiterate, as I always do, this is reported interest. I only put what has been reported here. So you often hear, people say, the 49ers or every team meets with every player at the Senior Bowl. They meet with every team at the Shrine Bowl. They meet with every team at the combine. I don't make those assumptions. That's not what this tracker is for. I track what has been reported. So I will say there's not a lot of wide receivers on this list. Do not panic. That doesn't mean they only met with 5 receivers at the combine, all right? So there's a lot of players, meetings that took place that are not going to be reported probably ever. That's just the nature of this draft process. We don't hear about everything. Okay, so just want to remind people of that. But let's talk about the names that we do know. The players that we do know the 49ers have met with. There are some intriguing players here. So Jaden Higgins, Iowa State, he didn't overlap with Brock Purdy, in case you were wondering. He only played the 1 year at Iowa State, but he's an intriguing player to me. Certainly at the combine, you're seeing the wide receiver drills happen today. Hell of a showing from Jaden Higgins. He has the size, and I think he showed some great athleticism out there at the combine today. So he's suddenly very intriguing to me. And again, I think you want to emphasize someone, at least for me personally, and I would hope the 49ers feel the same way. I think knowing what your offense is with Brock Purdy and what it's going to be, more of a drop back game, you don't need to rely on this yak stuff. Me personally, I am not of the mind that you need to replace Deebo, find a Deebo clone. That personally, that doesn't interest me. You're just going to end up with the same thing, some like mismatch of like this offense that you're moving towards now. A lot of it's still the same, but as far as like the role that players have, the type of receivers that you want, type of receivers that fit with what Brock Purdy does, I think maybe that's somewhat shifting a little bit. And so personally, I think Jaden Higgins actually would fit quite nicely with what I think the 49ers should be looking for going forward. Not to mention the fact that Brandon Ayuk may not be ready to start the season, or most likely won't be ready to start the season. You don't know how he's going to look after his recovery from the ACL tear. And I mean, at this rate, who knows? Maybe he even gets traded. So Jaden Higgins, I think, would be a great fit for the 49ers as far as what they want to do. To me, he's a true X receiver. There really aren't that many true X's in this draft. So Higgins, I think, becomes really intriguing to me. So he met with the 49ers at the combine. It was a formal meeting. To remind you guys what formal means. So formal meetings are set times with certain players. If I'm not mistaken, you can have 60-ish formal meetings. 60 15-minute interviews. Those are your formal meetings, all right? Anything that outside of that of players and teams interacting is considered informal, right? So formal to me holds some weight, a little more. So here's how I see it. Top 30 visits is like the biggest indicator of who they're interested in. And I think followed by formal, like that formal meetings at the combine would be the next thing. So, because again, there are 300 players at the combine. You could only meet with 60 of them, I said, right? 60 of them for 15 minutes. So to me, like that tells you that a team is prioritizing meeting with that player. And it could be for a variety of reasons, right? It could be to just get more information on medicals. Maybe you have character concerns over a player. It could be because of that. So it could be for a variety of things, right? And it isn't just, we want to draft you. But, just want to lay that out there for everyone. So Jaden Higgins, again, met with the 49ers at the combine. It was a formal meeting. He also met with them at the Senior Bowl, right? So now a couple times that he's met with them. Savion Williams, TCU, also an intriguing player. Savion Williams, to me, is intriguing in the Deebo role kind of sense, because he did somewhat have that role at TCU. So, that might interest you. Maybe it interests the 49ers. He had a formal meeting with the 49ers as well. Ricky White out of UNLV, he had an informal with the 49ers, so informal meeting with them. Juice Wells out of Ole Miss had an informal, and then Trey Harris out of Ole Miss had a formal meeting. So as of right now, those are the only ones we know from the combine. But like I said, there are most likely other wide receivers that they met with formally or informally that we just don't know about. We may never know about, but like I said, that's what we have. And there's definitely some intriguing wide receivers, I think, in this draft. It's not the greatest wide receiver class, so the 49ers could still elect to, get a wide receiver in free agency. Remember we were hearing the Higgins stuff, and it was like, well, why? That doesn't really make a lot of sense. Again, if the Brandon Ayuk thing has any legs, maybe that's why. But I think there's intriguing names in free agency as well. A name that has been thrown out quite a bit, Darius Slayton, for example. I think that could be a good fit for the 49ers. And you also want to see what you have in Ricky Pearsall, right? So, and maybe hopefully an increased role for Jacob Cowan. So, hopefully that's what we see. But just wanted to update you guys on this latest news. Again, I think it's definitely a positive for the 49ers, again, in regards to Jonathan Allen and him, being in discussions with this trade talk with the Commanders. Definitely something to keep tabs on if he ends up getting released, because, of course, the 49ers, I think, will continue to have interest for him and other defensive tackles in this class. So, I think this is about it for today. I am back. As you can see, I'm back home. I was out for the last week in Maui, but I didn't get to go to the combine. But as you guys know, I've been keeping up with the draft sheet as much as I can. I'm behind on a couple of things. Just got to clean up some things a little bit. So I'll be doing that throughout this week, and I'll also be enhancing it a little bit. I want to add some links to player RAS, so relative athletic score, that MathBomb puts together. I'll be posting links or including links to those for every player. So definitely going to be doing that. But appreciate you guys. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. I will be going live again Monday with Weston. We're going to have so much to talk about because I feel like so much happened this week, and definitely going to be diving deeper into who the 49ers have met with at the combine, and just giving you guys an update on the draft sheet on Monday. So make sure you guys check that out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. But for now, folks, talk to you guys later. Peace.